I think dialogue is often taken for granted. When writing, it's the part of a screenplay that's just supposed to be there.
Saw him riding that thing. That's right. You saw it. I did. You did.
Sometimes what we end up writing for characters can sound stale. How do you avoid making dialogue so matter-of-fact? Well, in trying to answer this question, I wrote a first draft that basically explored the fundamentals of good dialogue. I talked about purpose and why you write dialogue. And I came to the conclusion that it had to facilitate the needs of the story while also accomplishing other things at the same time. These things could be to catalyze conflict, reveal critical information, foreshadow, among many things, all while trying to sound natural. Good dialogue usually accomplishes two or more of these things at once. Then I kind of found out how eerily similar it was to another video essay out there by The Closer Look. Right down to the same examples and clips, except he got there a year earlier. As a side note, I do suggest checking out that video because it's quite good and explains a lot of components of what good dialogue should have. Or if you want, you can read my first draft by supporting me on Patreon. If you can't, that is okay as well. These videos are still free for you to watch. So I was no closer to finding out how to write good dialogue that is also interesting. You can write good, effective dialogue, but it also could be bland, straightforward, and very matter-of-fact. It's almost just a tool. So where else did I go? Well, how about this year's Best Original Screenplay nominees: 1917, Knives Out, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. These 5 films are a masterclass for not only screenwriting in general, but they each have a different lesson to tell about making your dialogue interesting. Spoilers ahead for nearly all 5 of the films. Let's start off with this year's Best Picture winner, Parasite. There's something great to be said about the way Bong Joon-ho makes you feel uneasy while watching Parasite. You feel like you're constantly on the edge of a knife, watching the Kim family secretly infiltrate the wealthy Parks, unsure if it will go well or poorly. What exactly does Bong Joon-ho do to make you feel this way, specifically when it comes to dialogue? As I've mentioned, good dialogue first should accomplish multiple things at once in addition to moving the story forward. One of those things can be to help get a character what they want.
아니 저기 잠깐만. 일단 생각을 좀 해보고.
그러면 저희 박스 돈부터.
Perhaps they want to persuade others of something.
네가 10배는 더 잘 가르칠 걸 매일같이 술 처먹는 대학생 씹새끼들보다?
그건 그렇긴 하지.
그래.
Or they have something they want to hide. This scene with Ki-woo and Mrs. Park at its surface is a simple job interview. Ki-woo wants to convince Mrs. Park to give him the tutoring job, while Mrs. Park wants somebody that tutors her daughter as well as Min can.
인간 자체가 워낙에 브릴리언트하잖아요. 저나 다혜나 만족도가 높았거든.
But of course, Bong Joon-ho throws a wrench in the situation by establishing the premise that Ki-woo doesn't have the qualifications, even though he claims he does.
수업 어떻게 하시는지. Is it okay with you?
It's this added element of risk that makes you stand on edge during their conversation. It is up to Ki-woo to make it seem like he knows what he's doing.
시험이라는 게 뭐야? 앞으로 치고 나가는 거야. 그 흐름을, 그 리듬을 놓치면 완전 꽝이야. 24번 정답? 관심 없어.
For the Kims, speaking to the Park family is never a simple conversation, because everything begins with this lie, which escalates over time as more of the Kim family infiltrate the Park's household.
미술심리학, 미술치료 쪽으로도 공부 중이라고 말씀드렸죠?
네네.
다송이한테 무슨 일이 있었나요, 1학년 때?
Each time it escalates, you feel a little more uneasy.
것 같은데. 아니, 전철 말고 벤츠로 쭉 가시죠.
저 해화역 3번 출구에서 남자친구 만나기로 했거든요.
Especially when it seems like the Parks are catching on.
자승이 그만.
똑같다. 둘이 냄새가 똑같아.
따라서 나는 그 여자의 상태가 매우 의심스럽다 이건데.
Even though they never actually do.
오마이 필로폰 코카인 뭐 이런 거.
There's inherent risk for the Kims present in every conversation. Every time the Kim family is successful, it also means for the story that the stakes are raised. Eventually, engaging dialogue with the Parks creates the possibility of losing everything. One slip up of their words, one lie that goes too far, and it's all over.
어? 이제 어떻게 할 거야? 계획이 뭐냐고.
Which is why halfway through the movie, we get this. This sequence is incredibly interesting for many reasons, not just because it's a twist, but how the Kims handle it. Bong Joon-ho writes the Kims to make a sympathetic but irrational decision, to let the housekeeper in. And then rather than trying to work something out with her, Chang-suk is confrontational.
근데 이제 어쩔 거야? 나도 알았으니까. 나는 전화를 할 수밖에 없어, 경찰한테.
언니 제발. 불우이웃끼리 이러지 말자, 언니야.
All of it is rather illogical. Threatening to call the police is just as much of a risk for the Kim family as it is for Moon-gwang. Illogical decisions raise the stakes and create conflict, and once the Kim family is discovered, the dynamic of the conflict changes completely.
저기 동생은 얼어 죽을 아가리 닥쳐 이 개쌍년아. 내가 찍은 거 이거.
Bong Joon-ho keeps things interesting by having characters not make rational decisions. It's a horror movie tactic in a subdued fashion. So think about risk and reason the next time you write your dialogue. Of all the great feats of Sam Mendes' 1917, dialogue is probably not the first thing that comes to mind. If I were to give 1917's dialogue a descriptor, it would be no nonsense. Everything is very straightforward.
Where's Major Stevenson? I was killed a couple of nights ago, Corporal. Lieutenant Lesier's command.
However, 1917 also does something else with its dialogue, in that it knows when to use less of it, like at the beginning of the film.
Blake.
Sorry, Sarge.
Pick a man. Bring your kit.
The sergeant doesn't explain anything to Blake. Blake simply complies and extends his hand to tell Schofield to go with him. If you didn't know the premise of the film coming into it, it would make you start wondering more what's going on. And this is why 1917's dialogue becomes interesting, because of how it withholds dialogue and makes communication difficult, which in turn builds tension.
You all right?
In fact, the entire premise of the film originates from the fact that they are not able to immediately communicate with the Devons.
They have no idea what they're in for. And we can't warn them. As a parting gift, the enemy cut all our telephone lines.
And my favorite sequence in the entire film is when Schofield is searching for Colonel Mackenzie among a legion of 1,600 men. With each subsequent failure at finding him, the tension becomes greater.
Where is Colonel Mackenzie? Where is Mackenzie?
1917 teaches us that oftentimes points of the highest tension come from what characters don't or can't say.
What the hell are you doing, Lance Corporal? No, 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 no!
Having characters who say too much can give away information and actually remove tension. It's why there are very few cell phones used in movies.
What are you doing? Get through! I have just seen Colonel Mackenzie.
So how about the few scenes where they do speak?
He wakes up and a rat is sitting on his shoulder, licking the oil off his head.
If we go back and try to understand the purpose of dialogue, this scene in particular gives us a much-needed break. However, it doesn't detract from the story completely. They are still moving towards their goal while speaking. This dialogue also accomplishes other things. One, it reveals new information about their characters.
And it's not just a bit of tin. It's got a ribbon on it.
I hated going home. I hated it.
And two, it is also a setup for an emotional payoff later on in the story.
He was a good man. Always telling funny stories.
Sometimes these long breaks in films don't amount to anything, but in 1917 it does. If we want to learn further about how dialogue can effectively and creatively reveal information about the characters you're writing, Marriage Story does that in a fantastic way. Noah Baumbach's deep look into the breakup of Nicole and Charlie's marriage gives us insight into the two different people they really are. I particularly want to focus on one scene from Marriage Story, this one, where Charlie gets served.
Feel like I'm in a dream.
And the reason why I picked this scene out of many others that I could have chosen that had great dialogue.
No, because then it would look to the court like you don't care about seeing your son.
Court or no court? Stop saying court, then never court.
Well, the way this is going, we may have to go to court.
Are you aware of how maddening you sound?
I am.
And conflict.
I made all the beds, closed all the cabinets,
that's
picked care of you like
makes
an
me want to
infant.
peel my skin off.
You'll never be happy. And now LA or anywhere, you'll think you found some better opposite guy than me, and in a few years, you rebel against him.
And lawyers.
I don't see how you can claim that she gets $500,000 dedicated to his genius.
He became a genius during the course of the marriage.
Oh, come on, Laura.
Is that up until this point, everything about Nicole and Charlie's marriage has been told to us.
What I love about Nicole, she makes people feel comfortable about even embarrassing things.
He loves being a dad. He loves all the things you're supposed to hate, like the tantrums, the waking up at night.
But this scene is when we finally get to see everything that's been told to us.
I realized I didn't ever really come alive for myself. I was just feeding his aliveness.
In action.
I won a MacArthur Grant.
Charlie! Oh my God, that's great! Congratulations! I'll say it because you can't. It's the Genius Grant. You're a genius.
It's dialogue that shows rather than tells.
He disappears into his own world.
It's yours, Charlie. You enjoy it.
I'm starving. It's good money, and they parse it out over 5 years, but it means I can keep everyone in the theater company employed, pay my credit card debt. Sometimes she listens too much for too long.
So great.
Of course, I went instantly to it's all downhill from here. My first Broadway play has to fail.
No.
Why don't we just start rehearsals again? I don't know.
You always don't know at this point, and then it gets there.
We can see how this scene reinforces the types of characters that they've both been described to be. How Charlie is stuck in his ways while Nicole had always pushed herself aside for him.
He's very clear about what he wants, unlike me, who can't always tell.
Tell them hi. I miss everyone.
Well, you'll see them again when you come back.
How he is driven and opinionated while she only ever tells him the things that he wants to hear. Charlie never asks about Nicole, and Nicole has always been a follower.
It would be strange if he turned to me and said, "And what do you want to do today?"
Which bathroom?
What?
Is she pooping?
Oh, downstairs.
Noah Baumbach makes her struggle to control the scene. He makes her struggle to get what she wants. But also...
Nicole gives great presents.
I was going to warn you so it didn't become a thing. I'm sorry.
Like in Parasite before, the instant Charlie receives the envelope, the scene's entire dynamic changes. Charlie goes from a place of absolute certainty.
Charlie is undaunted.
So what? What do I do?
One of the biggest movie surprises of last year for me was definitely Knives Out. Rian Johnson puts an unusual twist on the murder mystery genre in that he tells you who the murderer is, but that's not the only thing that's unusual. When we watch murder mysteries, there is something that occurs called the Rashomon effect, named after Akira Kurosawa's 1950 film of the same name. Rashomon refers to the unreliability of eyewitness testimonies. In Kurosawa's film, 4 different eyewitnesses tell 4 different stories of the same murder. And this is often used as a tool in murder mystery, where a detective will eventually poke holes in the stories to come to one definitive narrative of the truth.
I spoke in the car about the hole at the center of this donut. And what you and Harlan did, that fateful night seems, at first glance, to fill that hole perfectly. A donut hole in a donut's hole.
But in Knives Out,
everyone's story's matched, every moment accounted for.
so the story is seemingly wrapped up nice and tight, unlike in Rashomon. However, there are a few small things that don't match up.
You know, the funeral helped, I guess, just seeing him. I thought you should have been there. I was outvoted.
Get arrested. Die.
I thought you should have been at the funeral. By the way, I was outvoted.
Marta, Harlan's caregiver, good girl, hard worker. Family's from Ecuador.
Good kid. Been a good friend to Harlan. Family's from Paraguay.
Okay, a little more than a few.
My wife, Donna, she's my rock.
Jesus, Donna, you all right?
They're my family. I feel simultaneously freed by and supported by them.
Okay, maybe more than that.
You tell her or I will.
Yes. Harlan had finally decided to put his mom in a nursing home, and Linda had always opposed that.
It's a little ironic that the family contradicts each other in almost everything they say, except for the main details of the case. Rian Johnson's use of irony,
But really, she's like part of the family.
and contradiction,
Oh, you little bitch. You!
and juxtaposition
And if you think I am dumb enough to be baited into talking family business, into shit-talking my baby brother in front of a police detective and a state trooper...
Walt doesn't run shit.
makes us feel like this web of lies is a time bomb that's about to explode. It makes us want to listen and remember everything they say and try to figure out what's going to happen next. The dialogue creates this feeling of instability and makes us wonder. Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was the last film of these 5 that I got to watch. In my personal opinion, it's not necessarily his best work, but it's also not bad. Dialogue has always been one of the highlights of a Tarantino film. He is a master at it. In particular, he has a really good ear for conflict dialogue.
What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
Tarantino is great at putting 2 people in a room who disagree on something or have competing goals and just having them go at each other.
And if there are any irregularities to be found, rest assured there will be. That is unless you have something to tell me that makes the conducting of a search unnecessary.
This is when Tarantino is at his best, and the second half of Once Upon a Time is when the most conflict occurs.
So George gave you all permission to be here?
Of course he did.
And you all take care of him?
We take care of George.
Well, look, Red, I'm coming in there. With my own 2 eyes, I'm gonna get a good look at George.
Tarantino has an act for drawing you into the conversation immediately. He makes you want to know what is going to happen next. He creates a situation with risk.
Hippie girl, 50 cents. You are...
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
No, I was dumber than that.
He builds anticipation with non-dialogue. His dialogue effectively reveals what kind of characters they are.
If you got me covered up in all this, this junk, how's the audience gonna know it's me?
Let me just say, nobody beat the shit out of Bruce. It was a friendly contest. He barely touched me.
I think that dent in the car says something different.
And so on and so forth. These scenes are really telling of how to write in general because you ultimately have a story when you have conflict and stakes. Developing a good ear for dialogue is something I think new writers struggle with the most. What words sound genuine and natural without calling too much attention to themselves? How do you do this?
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry!
The advice I've gotten in the past was to listen to a lot of real-life conversations, and this is great for picking up nuances, the subtle ways people communicate, when they hesitate, where they look. But there's one thing that I've been talking about that I don't think real-life conversations capture very well. The thing is, when you have a conversation in real life, there's no dynamism in terms of the relationship you have with the other person. There's no profound change in the characters or situation. Your relationship generally remains the same, but in movies, dynamics shift all the time.
저기 동생은 얼어 죽을 아가리 닥쳐 이 개쌍년아. 내가 찍은 거 이거.
I have to find the Devons. Where the Devons? You're the Devons.
I was gonna warn you so it didn't become a thing. I'm sorry.
I know you just ate a full plate of baked beans and sausage. So, look me in the eye and tell me what happened to my grandfather.
No, it was dumber than that. Something like Rex.
가쪼럼 Tex?
Tex!
So start watching more movies, both good and bad, start breaking them down, and try to learn what works and what doesn't. This is why I ultimately created this channel. It's a way for myself to learn. Last of all, start writing. Thanks for watching. Hi everyone. I hope you're all safe and healthy. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for watching till the end of this video. It may not seem like it, but this one's a pretty big milestone for me. It's 30 videos, almost over 2 years now, since I created this channel. So I have all of you to thank who are watching this video and who are subscribed to me. If you want, please consider supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $1, you'll get access to the very first draft of this video. Like I said before, it was completely different. So check that out if you want. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Thank you.